give a bit of background on kind of where I come from. So I've had about 10 different ideas that I thought of just as I was preparing this presentation for different businesses that some that I've actually started as companies, and others were just sort of ideas that didn't necessarily go anywhere. This all started from me being on a cattle farm, or cattle ranch, as you guys call it here, in Australia. We had a 1,500 acre cattle ranch there that I came from. And I found I was very kind of geeky and into computers, and it was also a way to get out of doing all of the hard yard work and farm work with the farm at the time. So the more I'd get my head in the books, the more I'd be able to escape from some of the harder work or physical work on the property. So from a very different beginning, I actually came over to originally work for Apple Computer. A few of the ideas, I've just kind of done a few screenshots here, but I worked on like I said, a computer science curriculum initially for school districts. And then most recently, I'm still working on the ITCH program there. You can see with the blue background on that slide. And one of my more interesting ventures was a company called Employ Rate. I had the great idea of trying to build a what do you call it, a Yelp for employees, so that you could rate your service for a person at a business. And I still believe this one is a pretty good idea. I still have the service running. I just didn't get the traction I needed at the time. So it's one of those things I might revisit at some point. I have sold and built and sold a company as well. So Medio Systems that purchased a mobile advertising company I made. This was before ads were cool on phones. Everyone have a phone. You're now probably crazy with getting ads on them, but when the phones first came out, there were no ads on phones. And so we built the system to support that. Maybe you will be unhappy to hear that that's one of the things I did, but we ended up putting those ads into websites, and Media was later bought by Nokia, which then let me take a lot of the funding that I received from that for a lot of the other business ideas that I've been working on. I don't see any questions yet, so if you see any, post them in there. So next slide. I wanted to talk about the things that I wanted to focus on today. I broke it into 3 main components. You'll see a lot of things if you're like into business and stuff that people go into, like the 7 things you must have as an entrepreneur, or the 10 things for success. It's like I think some of those are great, but really I boiled this down to what it takes to kind of get to a point where you're ready to build and make your solution. And a lot of the hard work of doing that is really how you start out makes a big difference. So it's the first one there is mindset. The second one is relationships. And the third is the big picture. So I'm going to dive into each one of these. And first of all, mindset, whoops, my mouse moves the slides. Something you've probably heard of a lot at school is grit. I know that's a good buzzword, and it's for a good reason. You need it if you're going to succeed. And I wanted to just kind of show a video that resonated with me to kind of give the idea of what grit really means to people. Just shrink my window a little bit for this one. I think it's this one. No.
Ask yourself this: do you have grit? Some people may say that grit is having the perseverance in the face of adversity, setbacks and failures. It's the combination of those things that create grit. It's about having a stamina quality Not just being passionate, but sustaining that passion for a long time. It's not just about the hours of work you put in, it's about the hardest kind of work. You need to concentrate on the things you don't know, identifying your own weaknesses and working on that. It's about being in a very uncomfortable place, some part of your day working extremely hard, and then to get up and do it all over again. Grit can be the difference in becoming successful, because you will never give up and never run away when things get tough. This is the power of grit. Do you have it?
I think the reason that really resonates with me is just the focus there on persistence, right, and sticking with something and having the ability to keep your drive going. One of my favorite authors, Malcolm Gladwell, has a phrase that he used in one of his books several years ago, talking about it taking 10,000 hours to be good at something. It's not necessarily a formula for success, but it's definitely been shown through a lot of other studies, the amount of effort and work it takes to be an expert in a field, right? And so thinking about 10,000 hours is like, just boggles your mind of like what that means. But if you think of like a work year, you work for maybe 2,000 hours a year. So that's like doing something full time for 5 years, right, to get good at it. So that's a lot. It's a lot of work. I found one of the hardest things for me on a business was going out and getting funding, getting investment. So I've like listed that here. But really what it is I was outside my comfort zone, right? I had to go out and put myself out there and talk to investors to get money for a business. And most likely, if you were to start a business, you'd need to do that. It might not be your wheelhouse or what you're good at. And so, just like most other things you're going to do, maybe going to college, you have to go and talk to counselors and things like that to work out where you're going, or tutors. It's going to be, pushing through that and sticking with it. Investors are always there to kind of tear you down a little because they're looking for reasons not to want to give you money. So you have to have some thick skin. You have to have courage. You have to always be positive, because they're, at the end of the day, they're not necessarily investing in your idea. They're investing in you, right? And that's the same as any job that you might take. People are investing in you to hire you. And the same for taking your money, right? They want to know that it's going to someone that actually not just has the idea, but can actually go somewhere with it. And with that said, I think the other key point that really makes a difference is your relationships to build out your idea. And there's a lot more to relationships than you might think. And in business and anywhere you go for success, this becomes key. And the reason I put this so prominently is because if you want to get out there and be successful on a business, you're only going to know a certain amount of things, right? You know maybe a small amount of information. Who here, and I think you should have a reaction button, let's see if this works, whoops, has been to a career guidance counselor before to ask for some advice? And if you can use the thumbs up, I actually don't see it on mine. Let's see if we get any feedback there. Do a reaction of thumbs up if you've been to a career guidance counselor. No one? Okay. Well, if you have, and I'm sure probably several of you have, you would have found that they probably asked you a bunch of things that you didn't even think to ask, right? And you went there not really knowing what to ask. So there was like a lot of stuff that you didn't really know. So if you look at like classifying information, right, things you know, I put it into 4 different areas, and you may have heard of this before, but it's the things that you know, and that's just kind of like your knowledge that you have. There's the things you know you don't know. And that's like, oh, I know X, Y, Z, friends of mine know something that I don't. And then there's the things that you don't know, which is a little bit weird, but it's like your subconscious maybe, or things you're aware of that you don't have on the front of your mind, right, that you know about. And then the last one, which I think is the most interesting here on business development, is the things that you don't know, right? And it's like, there's so much information on things that you would need to start a business, but you don't even know what they are. So unless you build relationships with people that have experience or knowledge in other areas, you would really struggle to figure that out. I've had some really great partnerships through some of my businesses. I had like a financial advisor, for instance, that introduced me to investors. But he was also, it was a scratch my back, I scratch yours relationship, because he wanted to learn about technology. He had no idea about tech and wanted to get into investing in tech. Have a look at the list of people, participants on this call, right? Take a look at who else has joined you here. They're your, relationships going forward, possibly, right? You're going to go to college with some of them. And at the end of the day, when you finish college, you'll be part of a college alumni or something like that. Those connections will come from folks that will be able to help you out, right? Maybe you have a friend that's, really into art, and you're a tech person. You know what? To have a business succeed, you're going to have someone create advertising for you, right? Someone made designs for this slide here that I'm using, and I know that's not my skill. So having someone to help me out on things like that, without maybe having to get it all from investment, is key. So make sure you kind of cherish those relationships and build them up. They'll be a big payback for you later in life. And then the third component that I want to talk about is the big picture. And I'm not talking about TV or a movie. And what I'm referring to here is just taking a step back, looking at everything in perspective. Like if you stare at your hand an inch away from your face, you have no idea that's a hand, right? So if you take a step back from that and look at all of the context of what you're trying to do, don't just focus on the stuff that you know how to do. Take a look at everything. You have to cover your bases. And that means making sure you know where your money's coming from for it. What are you going to do for marketing? How are you going to first figure out if someone even wants what you're going to do, right? The idea itself is only 5% of a business. The rest of it is all the things you might not have thought about, right? The sales, the channel, the program itself. I don't want to get too detailed, but it's like there's a lot more to a business than just the idea. And you figure that out by looking at the big picture. And interestingly enough, even with people knowing a lot of these things, 50% of businesses still fail. And that's just after 5 years. So why do they fail? Well, the main reason, 42% of them, in fact, fail because they haven't worked out what the market needs. And what does that mean? It's like they haven't worked out who their customers are, or they haven't worked out if anyone actually even wants what they're going to do. It's like people have these brilliant ideas, right? But the only person who maybe they could sell that to is themselves. And so if you get out there and you have a look at the big picture and you solve and have relationships, you've knocked out 40% of your reason for failure, because those people will quickly tell you that, they want your product or how you should change it or what you should do to make it successful. And the same for anything you're doing in life. Getting other perspectives is key. We live in our own skin all the time, and having other folks that have like very different views can make you a lot more apt to change what it is you're doing, and able to be applied to a lot more people than just your immediate audience. So get out there and talk with people and work out, what they think about it. If you are still talking about the same idea in 2 months' time as when you first start out with your idea, it's probably time to stop, right? You should adapt your idea to the feedback you're getting. You should change to include different solutions or different ideas into it from what you're hearing from different groups. And diversity is a big word here that I think is also important to make sure that's coming into play, because the diversity of your input means you expand out to all different segments of people, not just the people that look and talk like you, right? There's a much larger audience that you have to consider. To really succeed, I wanted to sort of summarize this into a cycle that I think you should go through. If you were starting up a business, you would definitely be thinking, I've got to come up with an idea, right? But the idea really is only the starting point, right? It's just the point of like, I've got something unique, something neat that people seem to be interested in. Get out there and socialize that idea. Talk to your trusted relationships that you've built, your friends and your family. A lot of there's two minds here. Some people tell you, don't talk to anyone. They'll steal your idea and run away with it. I've had a really, what I consider smart relationship with one of my business partners, and that's advised me the opposite, and it's worked for me up till now, which is it doesn't ever hurt you to talk to other people about your idea, because if they want to take it, they've already got a competitor, and they've got a competitor that wants to that already is very experienced in what the idea is going to be, and that's you. So unlikely that anyone's going to take your idea and steal it. That said, don't go banging on some large corporation's door and telling them your idea that they could definitely take. Your friends and family and your local network is a great place to talk about that. That really validates the idea to some extent, but really you want to get out and put something up that shows that it's going to work. And I've done this in myself a bunch of different ways, right? I was doing some lesson plans for coding and seeing if I could get people to sign up. Well, I didn't want people to sign up for it immediately. I was going to have them sign up like in a few weeks' time. So I can build the page that gets people to sign up for my class before I've even made the content that goes behind it, and see if anyone even wants it. So I don't have to build anything. I just build one advertising page for it. That's pretty quick to do and fairly cheap. And I bet most of your teachers have probably done things like that as well. They like build a plan for their semester, and then they're kind of building it in as they go. And then the last point is the step that most people think about is, I've got to build it and launch it and get it out there. That's really the last step. And sometimes this can take years. And so if you start at step 4, you maybe just wasted 2 years of your life for an idea that you haven't socialized or validated, and you have to go back and start over. So make sure you do those first steps before you get there, because they're short, they're fairly quick, and they don't cost you much in time or money, actually. And I think that's my last slide. So I was going to leave it there. If you guys have any questions, I didn't see any coming in on the chat, so maybe I can get a few softball questions from the hosts as well if they had any. Okay, Mary, you still there? But you guys are all on mute. Oh, there we go. Got one question. How long to commit to an idea? I think it varies. If you're getting traction and people like it, then you can essentially you should be like recommitting to it all the time. I think at the point that you're seeing that your idea is not going anywhere, or it's not growing, or it's not getting necessarily the uptake, it's time to reevaluate and reconsider it. And I've had a couple of ideas where, after a month or so of just socializing and going out, I realized that that was something that was a very niche solution. So only, maybe 1% of the people out there would be interested in it. And others where I quickly find that there's competitors or people already doing something similar enough, and you can look at how they did to decide that it was maybe not such a great idea. Or if you're getting feedback and everyone's like, yeah, this is super interesting, I'd pay for it, keep going. But again, telling you that it's a good idea and then having something where they have to actually click or pay, $5 for something are very different things. So getting to the point of where you validate that, and then if you don't get the results you want, you either look at reworking it entirely or start over with something else. So I would say months at the most. Just as a general kind of thing I've learned on things where I've had other ideas I've spent a year on that I should have probably stopped a lot earlier. Good question though. Okay, well, I thank everyone for your time today and appreciate the foundation giving me the opportunity to create the recording and share some insights. I hope it's helpful for you, at least as you kind of get started out there in your college life. And I think the main takeaway I wanted to give you is, like, as you're going through college, those relationships you're building are very, very key to any success that you may have later, being able to help you with all sorts of things that you might not realize.
Jason, this is Sandy in the Carmen box. That actually brings up a really great question. As they go out into their future life, college is not going to look like college did for you or I. And
Sure.
So how do you create those relationships as we socially distance?
Well, my daughter is doing it online gaming, right? I think the social networks that the kids have seem to be the places that they're building that community now. And interestingly, I've seen through, I'm joking a little bit about the gaming one, but it actually is yielding lifelong friends, right? And so those connections, depending on where you find them, I think it's good to recognize people that are in your network that have different kind of interests and capabilities, because a lot of times we try to associate around the same type of people, right? And so if you through college, you'll get a lot of people in different courses. You may have like events and things where you meet, or whatever they're going to do online. I haven't really thought too much about what they're going to look like, as they don't get to socialize as much anymore, or where they'll make those. They make them online now in different ways, but I think as they do, it's like don't disregard those connections you make with people who are like really different to you. They can be a really good sounding board for being able to validate whatever your idea might be, or to help you with some weird part of your schoolwork assignment that you're stuck on, right? It's like, that there's all sorts of points in time in your life where you'll be glad that you've got someone that has really good fashion sense, or someone that's a great supporting you for like how to get your diet under control. I don't know. It's like it's never ending, and I think the just maybe get on my high horse for a minute, but I think that the biggest problem I see with social networks is they're connecting people a lot of times that are similar into closed communities, and I really think that's a detriment to our own well-roundedness and ability to be the best people we can through a network of different people. So I go out of my way to try to have connections with people that are outside my comfort zone, politically, religiously, everything, right? So I think that's something that if we did more of that, we'd be all a much more cohesive community.
Well, that's actually a great piece of advice to end on, I think, to embrace different-minded thinking. I can't imagine anything better for us to take into the next era when we leave the COVID era.
Yeah, for sure.
So I will just, seeing that there are no more questions in the chat box, I will let our students continue with their fabulous Thursday, and thank them so much for joining us. And Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.